And we're on.
Here we are. Yes. So, hi everybody. This is Lisa with the Heartbeat of Hope, and I thank you guys for tuning in today. And I just want to just give a little update here for sure that I haven't been on for a little bit, and if anybody just tuned in and just this is the first time you've listened to one of my podcasts, the point of these, the Lord told me to do them, is to have testimonies of what God has done in people's lives, where they were at, their journey to know the Lord and recovery and coming out and the testimony of where they are now. And if you guys go back and look, I've had people that have been through domestic violence, they've been meth dealers, been in time in prison, and all of that. So that's what these podcasts are all about. And today I have Matthew on here today and
Hello.
he has an amazing testimony. Yes.
Oh yes. Oh man, I'm so grateful to be um one alive and two just of sound mind and able to just walk in the gift of a new beginning. Um,
He's
it's
definitely new beginnings over and over. Like
over.
when you hear
That's
his
crazy,
stories
right?
over and
It's
over.
crazy. Yeah.
But just to give a little backstory, I met Matthew, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago at the Michael unit in Texas prison. And I went in there with a group and spoke, and he was one of the fellows that I ran into. And then we just kept in contact during the time that he was there, and then he got out in December last year, 2025. He got out, and he's been out 6 months now. Look
6 months.
at him
Yes. Yeah,
sitting on the
yeah.
patio.
6 months. It's amazing. Yeah, I so that's a good place to
Patio.
start. That's a good place to start because, like the feeling of being 6 months released, contrasted from day one, November 4th of 2010, because that's when it started. I got those handcuffs on
2010.
me. Yeah, I got those handcuffs on me and I went to jail. I was 19 years old. My ship date to boot camp for the Air Force was on the 28th of November of that month. And I've said before, but I was married. I had a baby. Um, and like the beginning of a young man's life. Oh, not long,
How old
but
were
I
you
was
when you got married?
19.
19. That's young.
Yeah, yeah. We had been together for like maybe 2 years, so I was 17, and
Yeah.
it was a mess. It was a big, huge mess. Addiction so I'm a survivor of like sexual trauma when I was a child, close family member, I was raped, and then a neighborhood kid would like continually molest me and stuff and overpower me, and it was just terrible. And going through life, I was always like separated from people, like connections with people. Like they would give me praise, and I would not like that. I was relatively did well in school, but I kind of like I was real rambunctious in the beginning, and then when that happened to me, like my light went away, and
Yeah.
so I would be more like distracted and not, and teachers perceived that as being slow. And then once like it kind of left me alone, I did stuff on my own. And in fact, I have a fifth grade teacher that she reaches out to me to this day where they were
Oh,
teaching us
she does?
cursive. Yes, they were teaching us cursive, and like this was like right during the time where I was going through a lot of stuff, and she was like, "Hey, you don't have to learn with the class because I can see that you're struggling, and I'm going to talk to your parents. You don't really have maybe you don't have the dexterity for it, so don't worry." And so she put me in the corner in the back, and I taught myself cursive. I did the activities and I did it all on my own, and I would save everything. And so one day, something happened where we had to rearrange a desk, and she had found like all the things that I had not turned in but had done. And it,
I can't
so it was
believe
one of,
she still reaches out to you. That's awesome.
oh yeah, because it was one of those things. She was like, "You are my favorite student. I still remember you to this day." And so
Wow.
it's, yeah, so so that, um and then moving forward into just being, because it was a Catholic school, and
Wow.
so it was real small, and we were really close, but this thing happened to me, and it's like,
Man.
in eighth grade, that's when I started getting drunk with like my younger cousins. I would be doing alcohol and drugs, like smoking pot and stuff, early age. And then leading up into my freshman year, that's when it was just like set in stone that I was going to go through this wasteland of addiction.
Is that
Um,
when you started doing drugs?
Around 14, I had broke my arm skateboarding in summer, and I went to summer school, and I was prescribed opioids, and like it was like oxycontins, and like that was a major surgery. I had like three
Oh my
pins in my
God.
arm. I like my elbow got separated. I shattered the ulna, splintered my radius. It was like bad. I have three pins in my arm. They had to reconstruct my elbow. Like it was bad. It was a
You
major
were in
surgery.
high school and they gave you opioids and
Yeah, yeah. It was the
wow.
summer leading up to my freshman year. It was Oxycontin and then Tylenol threes. But the thing is, I went into that already, like my nervous system primed for that because I have ADD. So in first grade, I was taking Adderall, first grade to fifth, and then I stopped. So my body, so I was exposed to narcotics at an early age, but like the the drive to change how I felt wasn't there until after something bad happened to me. Because I didn't like the way it
Wow.
made me feel. I would refuse to take my medication, first grade and second grade, and that's kind of like how I told you about the story of my teacher, where she was like, "Well, you just don't have the." It's just because I didn't like the way it made me feel. But then once that
Right.
happened, and I needed to feel different, with the power greater than myself, right? With something different, with a substance. It was dramatic. Like my arm
So you,
healed, but go ahead. Yeah, my
oh,
arm
that's okay.
healed, and
Um,
yeah, we're going there.
I think you're kind of cutting out a little bit.
Okay.
It's breaking
Yeah,
up
can
a
you hear
little
me
bit.
now? Yeah.
No, I was just gonna ask, so you started drinking and then you got the opioids in high school and then you progressed on to just marijuana and other drugs, or it just kept going up
Yeah.
to worse
Oh
stuff?
man. So at the first, I could really say that I was addicted to prescription medication. There's kids at my school that like prescribed Xanax, and I was prescribed Adderall, and then so it was Adderall and Xanax, and then cocaine in my sophomore year, and ecstasy, and then like mushrooms and acid and all that other stuff in my summers of the sophomore year. And then I started hanging out with like public school kids, and like then it just started getting worse and worse. But all in all, if like I consider myself like a Xanax addict. That was the major drug of choice from, the beginning of my high school all the way until, maybe 6 months prior to, my crime. I was doing some form of um, benzo. So I was really just, and for people that are aware of benzodiazepine addicts, that it's a wholly different person. You are like the absolute walking worst version of yourself. Like every terrible character defect that you possess is on full rain rampant mode. And um and so, you know, I only had two serious relationships in high school. I had a lot. I was very promiscuous, but the main thing was I liked one person, I was with one person. So I was with this one girl that her mom was prescribed Xanax, and I stayed with her almost till like my whole entire high school, until I met my the girl that would be ultimately I'd marry. But it was the same thing. Like it was just terrible, using and abusing and um, getting wrapped up in all that. And that's
Well,
kind of what. So what?
so what led you to prison? What led
So
you?
this is
What
it.
got
This
you?
is it. This is it right here. So on my I graduated high school, unbelievably. I did. And so I was with my then wife, and she had been pregnant. I got her pregnant, and um, I didn't want to be an addict anymore. I didn't want this life that we were just this misery that we had. And so my dad's a police officer, retired Air Force, and so I figured like the only way that I'm gonna be able to really get out of this is to commit myself to something so like such a drastic change that it's gonna take me away. It's gonna take us away, and it's gonna be good. And so that was my plan, but her plan was not my plan. And not recognizing that I could just have a child with somebody and not be tied to this person because our values are different or because like the situation is bad. Uh, Really, that being too over idealistic about what was going on and very emotionally mature, I created a circumstance that completely consumed me with resentment and all these things. So, like, when it was finally time to ship off, um, leading up to that day where I committed my crime, is like there was just so much going on. Like, there was like we had this moments where she'd get sober, she'd go to rehab, and then she'd get out. I'd still be using drugs, and she's like, "You need to stop using drugs." And then when I stopped, she would start, and so it was just this crazy rat race. And so when we finally got to a moment where it was like, "Okay, we're married now." The direction that we have is truly we have to do it together, and that we were
Yeah,
just not capable. We were not capable of aligning what our life together would be. And I didn't have the emotional maturity or awareness to recognize that and to remove myself from the situation and but still do right by a child that I have fathered. And so that's something that I came to that realization. But just all that stuff for my 19-year-old, 13-year-old addict brain could not function
yeah.
in all of that, and it spun out of control, and it all came to a head where we had fought really bad, and she was staying with a friend of mine, an old friend of mine that it's this girl, but she's in a very um, let's just say shady way of living, and it was like wow, look, like now here it is, and so finally. Like I just couldn't, like I hate to compare, but I can't really like put it into words other than like so you know how Samson like pulled the temple on top of him in the Bible? So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like how like my whole circumstance was so out of control that I felt like I just had to just pull everything on top of me.
Pull it all down.
Yeah. And so that's what I did. Um that's what I did. And, you know, when
Well,
that
you didn't
happened,
intentionally do this.
No, it's just this
I
is just
mean,
a this is just like after the fact, right? Just like this seeing like so when I did this thing, when I committed my crime, the action was intentional, but the result was not. You
right.
know, I did not intend to kill my child.
Yeah.
And I did, and so now, that's what led me to prison. Ultimately I was arrested for um serious bodily injury, intentionally and knowingly to a child, but I was charged with capital murder. And so that's a life without or a death penalty. But then as time went on, there was an independent investigation. They lowered it to murder, and then ultimately, it was reckless serious bodily injury by omission. Turns out that there was like old injuries. It's a bunch of things. There was a bunch of mitigating circumstances around the whole situation. And it was just one of those things where it's like, you know, this is really a huge thing when you read in the Bible what was meant for bad to be good. And I hate to put it in that, and it's not, there's nothing good of that's a tragedy, right? It's awful. But
It is a tragedy, but I know what you're
it,
saying, where he turns every Romans 8:28. He'll take
yeah,
bad and make it good, because
yeah,
there's
yeah,
bad in this world. Bad happens every day, you know?
yeah, yeah. And then so going into jail, with that, not only am I a son of a police officer, I've also committed this crime against a child. And so that puts us and highlights us to get, killed ourselves or hurt really bad ourselves. And going into jail with that, it was like, wow. And I ended up spending 2 years in jail. And before I went to
Just waiting
TVCJ.
for sentencing and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, so I want to just stop. I just feel led to ask you this because I know that there's people that have committed crimes, how horrific they may be or how tragic they are. But how did you come upon, getting past the guilt and shame and all of the stuff that went along with that? Because you did not intend for that to happen. I know it was not intentional. It was just a result of you know the whole package of the drug addiction and everything. It was an accidental crime basically. But so like how did you get through, because that would there's a lot of people that would take out completely.
Oh, it definitely, so I'll say it like this, okay? That is, so when people say the worst thing that they've ever done, they have to like maybe think a little bit. It is loud and proud in my mind, burned in my mind, the worst thing they've ever done. And like the feeling and all that stuff, and just it's awful. It's so awful. But what I can say is that uh we have a forgiving and merciful master of the universe that gives us that peace, but we have to accept, like I had to accept with inside of my heart that I did that, and there is no like explanation or excuse for what I did, but I did it, and the only way that I can ever even make steps to an amends, because there's no setting that right, but there's helping others get that aren't as, so that's what I call an irretrievable consequence. It's
Yeah,
irretrievable. It's
won't
you
take
know it
that
it's
back.
yeah, and so, but there's people that are in a play, and that's what God gave me. I think the vision to see this is that there are people that are not so far along that there's no returning, or that their return
Absolutely.
would, and so that's what uh unburdened me, is that realization that, okay, I processed this, it's my fault, it's not her fault, it's not anyone else's fault, it's a situation. There doesn't have to be a villain here. Yes, it's a heinous thing, and yes, I did that, but if we do have, there's redemption. If there's a concept of redemption, I think that I can live in that. And if I really believe in it, then the result of my belief in it will take me through. And so, that's why I didn't really spiral out, even though I was emotionally very, very volatile in the beginning. I just like I saw like those people committing suicide in there. Like it was a bad season inside of that county jail, and I got to experience my cellie hanging himself, like, and I got to like
Um,
pull him out of the cell and him being dead, and so those moments of my life were, it was just like, man, it was so much, and I can only attribute it to his divine covering and just putting in my heart and spirit, like, you will get through this, but you have to be steadfast and you have to work on like how you view yourself and how you view people, and you have to care. Like there has to be this thing, like I think what happened to me as a child kind of like took my light away, and I just was
yeah,
like a shell of a person, and I didn't
it
feel,
hardens
and
you.
yeah, and then even like the feelings that I felt were like either super too loud or not enough. It was just crazy. But anyway, like so experiencing that and the coping, I think we're talking about that. Um, and processing that grief, it was definitely a 2-year thing. Even though it still
Well, I
was like
guess,
a
yeah.
sim.
Well, and I guess what I'm feeling like, I'm just feeling like the Lord is kind of leading us, like, because people, like I said, the people, they do something. So this happened, you got sentenced, you went to prison. Was this like for you to forgive yourself, accept that you can't change it? And that's those, you got to forgive yourself, accept you can't change it. And then how long did it take you to just kind of lay that down, accept that you can't change, forgive yourself, and move forward?
Probably about 7 or 8 years.
It's a journey.
Probably about 7 or 8 years. And I say that because this is how I knew when I, because when I went into TCJ, my crime, the way it's written, it's reckless, serious bodily injury by omission, and like injury to the child is at the very last end, and it's very, very long. So it's typically it's abbreviated. So I would just say that, it was a, serious bodily injury, and I wouldn't go into detail. And that was out of fear. But then once I, probably about 7 years in, I think it was a visit with my mother, and just seeing the passage of time and just experiencing like just a lot of things. It was a bunch of like spiritual awakening type stuff, and I was smoking it too, but not very heavily, but I was still doing it. And like I got a 2-year degree, and I was working an industry job welding. Um, but there was a moment where I had a cellie that he was so consumed with, it was like solicitation of a minor online or something. Like he, I could see like the things that I couldn't verbalize inside of myself struggle. I was seeing it on his face,
Hmm.
and like
Um,
I instantly recognized, like, dude, that the way he looks right now is the way that I've been feeling this whole time, and like I just have a moment, like I just had this clarity, right, to see that. And once I saw that, I said, you know what? This is what I'm gonna say, that I know I killed my son, man. And this is what happened to someone else, to someone that has that is going through something, not to use their not to use this situation. I'm not, don't, like, it's easy to misconstrue that, but just I felt led, like there was a spiritual component to this thing, where it's like, man, if I don't, I need to say this out loud. Like that's the only way that I could ever, that's, give my respects. Like that was, I finally gave my respects to the passing of my son at that time by telling this man that, I had did what I did, the exact nature of what I did. And it was, oh man, like, you don't want to talk about emotional detox. Like it was just like wept tears. Like it was a moment. And so that time, that's when that's when all that went away. Not
And that's the
not
first time you confessed it to another person, like as your story, like not being as somebody's coming at you to sentence you, but like that's the first time it came out your mouth as a story, like I did this
Yeah,
and this is
yeah. This is
wow.
what I did. This is what I did, and that's what freed me.
It
Um,
is because when you lay out what you did, or because the enemy wants us just to keep us in shame. So keep us in shame, keep us quiet, don't say anything, and then
yeah,
when you finally spit it out and put it out there, it just loses power.
yeah, and I think that's when God anointed me right then and there to have a platform to speak, because that was 7 years in. So about 2.5 years after that, kind of like my 9 year mark, that's when I overdosed on K2, at the Win Unit. An officer had to revive me, and then I went to the prison of prisons, for 18 months, and that's when I really
What's
had
the
a,
prison of prisons? What's the prison of
it's like
prisons?
SAG.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like another prison, a different
No,
place.
no, no, no. SAG, like G5 and SAG. That's like we call that. So one of, like, G4 is like state jail, and G5 is like, you know G5 SAG
So
is
P5, to the people that don't know anything, that isn't that 23 hours a day? You don't get out.
yes, yes. And then on this unit, it was single man cell. So
So
it
you were
was
by
like,
yourself. You didn't have a cellie. You didn't have anybody in there with you.
yeah, and it was during COVID, and
Ah,
so
mhm.
it was even more dreadful, right? And yeah, and so that's, I had a just a that super download of spiritual alignment from God, from the Almighty, right? And He's like, is every take, because think about this, at 19 I did my crime, at 29 I overdosed, and so it's like, is every 10 years going to be this thing that happened? And I don't think that I will last that long. And I recognized that I needed to just press in on the fact that, what can I control right now, right here? And that's the quality of my thoughts. So that's where this thing
Mhm.
of like mental hygiene came into play, and I guess like measuring,
Mental
like keeping
hygiene. Is
putting,
that what you said?
yeah,
Mental hygiene.
yeah, yeah, like,
I
keep
like
it. So the
that.
Bible says, what, put your thoughts captive, take your thoughts
I
captive.
know. I've never heard it said like mental hygiene, like go in there and brush
Yeah,
your teeth, like you're gonna go in
yeah,
there and brush your
yeah.
teeth and
Yes,
thoughts and
yes,
get a
yes.
washcloth
And
and clean it
I'm
up.
telling you, that's divinely inspired right there. I'm telling you. But that
Mental
was the thing.
hygiene.
So
I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna
yeah,
take.
yeah. So it was like, okay, what am I gonna allow to be in here? And then why don't I use this, like, instead of recollecting and thinking back and all this stuff, like, yes, we have to use hindsight, to develop foresight, right? Like we have to look back and then see, like, okay, presently, am I gonna make the same mistake again, or I'm not? And then that kind of gives us the ability to navigate. That's important. But for prisoners, it's so easy to get stuck in looking back, because of what we've lost and equating it that we
Right.
can, like, all that is good is gone and we cannot have any good forward. And that was a real issue for me because of what I did. Like, how can I have a happy life after I did this thing? Like, how can I be happy, joyous,
Yeah.
and free after this happened? How can I even get into a relationship with another person after doing this? Like, how is that even possible? How am I even have, or like, I want to say worthy, but how is that even relevant in my life after this going on? And
Yeah.
that was some of the things that was, bouncing around in there. And then I realized it's like, you know what? How about I just be the person that if that circumstance ever comes back into my life, that I would be so grateful and that I will be someone who um, is of value to another person, or of value to the people that they're around. That's not going to do the typical things that is expected of someone who has a felony or someone who's a criminal or someone who has gone through some things and just doesn't care about people. Like that was the truth that I recognized being in that moment and inside of SEG for that long, and that's where, like, the being compelled to, the only audience that matters is my heart and God, about my character, about like being trustworthy and dependable. And that was two major things inside of me that were like driving my thoughts, is like, how can I every day be trustworthy and dependable to myself first? Because that's all I had. And Al was my biggest betrayer. Like, I've betrayed myself numerous times. The things that I said I wouldn't do, and I'm doing it, and I'm doing it, and I'm doing it, and I'm doing it. And while I'm doing it, I don't want to do it. That's
Yeah.
betrayal.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and so,
self-sabotage, like we were talking about
yeah,
before that, sabotage
that's it.
where, and
That's
that's
it.
fear. That's
Yep.
like you are so scared of failure or even success that
Yep.
you'll just sabotage it because it's fear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
self-defeating behavior. So then, I recognized that, and this is something that's super important about, like, the intangible stuff, the stuff that you can't really, um, things of value, and that's how you um, keep commitments to yourself and then to other people. Like, having that ability to say, like, do what you say and say what you do, and then that's it.
Yeah. Your word.
Um,
Yes.
and that is, wow. That's value. That's something that is divine, really. So I wanted that, and then I looked around. I had read this book called the Book for Radicals, and it was like a community organizing thing. It was a political science book, and it talked about like citizenship. It talked about, like, people being aware of the issues that are around them, and like that's how you be a good citizen. And so I was like, man, like, I believe that I could change this place if I change myself enough to where I'm an example that when they say easier said than done because you're in prison, like, that's not applied to me. And what the easier said than done thing is, like, having value in a place where the expectation is that you don't have any. Like,
So this time in SEG, you got the mental hygiene and you got
yeah,
everything, all these downloads and everything. And so you all of a sudden you're like, "Phew, let me look at how I got to make myself better so that I can help others be better." You totally just switched this to
yeah,
a whole new outlook, whole new perspective, whole new goals, whole new everything.
yeah.
Thank God for SEG then.
Yes, yes, it was a springboard. It was a springboard because look, get this, and this is where it gets really good, and this is where it gets really good. And it's all glory to God, right? Because
Yeah.
he is, man, he is a award winner. So get this. All right, so I had this realization, and I read this book, and I was really consumed with this idea of, like, affecting the place around me, and I felt it, like I could, this was me, and it gave me a bearing, like, so when a bearing, like, when you see someone walk in, like, okay, that person has a direction about them. Like you can tell a lot how someone presents themselves,
Yeah.
right? And so it gave me this bearing, man, that was just like when I got out of SEG, I was sought, um, and I got this opportunity to get with this building major, and it was the right place, right time. And I've talked about that life coach program, but that was an instance where God gives you provision, and He gives you something, and He makes a circumstance for you to use exactly what it is that He gave you without knowing how to set it up. Because
Well, and that's
there was
what's
no
so cool is you can see you went into SEG. You were how long were you in SEG?
18 months.
18 months. Wow.
It was supposed to be
So
6.
over
It was
a
supposed to be
year,
6. And yeah, yeah,
and then you come out and you're a totally different person.
yeah.
So did people around you notice when you got out of SEG? Because then
Oh,
you
yeah.
started
Oh,
getting
yeah.
opportunities for the life coach and all of that thing. So did
Yeah,
people
yeah.
notice the difference when you went in and came out?
Oh, oh man, did they? It was like, oh, there's no way. Like you're still doing, you just got better at it. Like you found a way. And it was one of those things where it was like, no, I didn't. And it
While
was
you
it
were
was
in
great.
SEG, did you quit doing
Yeah,
drugs? You weren't
I
doing
didn't
any
do
more
it.
residue.
I didn't do it. I didn't do any drugs, and I stopped. So October 19th of 2019 is so 10/19/19. Um, I've been
10,
sober for that long.
19.
Yeah, that's how long I've been sober. And
Good job.
yeah, yeah, and then so like yeah, then getting that opportunity, and then further. So this is like my second climax for this story because like the one that life coaching was huge and we affect the system in a major way. And then two, going
Yeah.
to the Hamilton unit, and doing the train that we did, and then creating recovery housing, which on the Michael unit we made a huge impact, which to this day is reverberating throughout
It's still
the
going on.
system,
Yeah.
and they're allowing people that have long-term sentencing to be trained in being a recovery specialist. So that's a huge win. That's a result of the work that we did that shows that there's a proof of concept for that. Um, but then, so God will, okay, so I had this conviction, right, of I want to be trustworthy and dependable, a man of my word, not going to compromise my boundaries of what I will do and won't do inside of prison, as far as like, just my word, having integrity. I was given trust. I was given these opportunities to work with, affecting the quality of life of my peers, of being able to present opportunities to decision makers for them to allow free will people to come in, and for us to have programming and all that stuff. And so that level of influence was needing to be stewarded in a way that was in alignment with what how I received this whole thing, which was like, if your heart's true, it'll happen for you. And that's exactly like that's the thing. My heart, I felt like it was more than just reading something and like, oh yeah, I identify with that. It's like I was living what I felt my change was.
Yeah, you had a divine encounter. I didn't hear about this in your story before, so this is awesome
Yeah,
because this is added
yeah,
to story, but I
yeah,
didn't hear about that. Yes, maybe like in a little piece or whatever, but I just feel like you have this, like you were in this divine incubator of the
yeah,
Lord, and He's, you know, healing you, giving you, anointing you, teaching you, um, cleansing you, because
yeah,
you're now off
yeah,
drugs and all of it. All of this
yeah,
happens in this divine incubator, and then you come out and everybody can see you're different. Something
yeah,
happened. Things started happening to you. You started having opportunities, resources, people
yeah,
coming, people believing in you. Now you have ethics, values. all of these things
A
that you
moral
weren't really
compass,
doing
yeah.
before. Yes, you have a moral compass, and then you start rolling. And so you did the life coach program, peer to, what were you, a peer to peer
The
specialist? Was that what it was called?
the peer recovery
Peer
support
recovery.
specialist. Yeah,
Did
and
that,
then
so kind of talk, yeah, about your journey through what you did after that switch and what you're doing now.
yeah, so the recovery specialist thing, that is the highlight of my term of incarceration because all of that shaping and molding of like my vision and my ability to check myself and have this like command of self allowed me to be a co-founder of a big, huge opportunity program for people that are going through addiction that have long-term sentences that won't get the opportunity to go to like a treatment facility for their parole because of how long their sentences. And so we brought that there and all of the details and how to and like starting it up and keeping it going and expanding it, that was something that um, I was equipped through a divine encounter because there's no way because I was formerly trained as a welder. Yeah, my mom is a high school guidance counselor. My dad's like they're civil servants, I guess you could say. And so,
Yeah.
that maybe that there's an aspect of that. But as far as being able to actually, execute an operation like that to where you have to coordinate with unit level administration, you have to relay information of the day-to-day operations, you have to get the participants and, create accountability, paperwork for, and we have to make a staff. And we had a staff, inmate staff that would help us do the groups, maintain the boundary of the expectations of the living area. And when I say boundaries, like the rules and the guidelines and just the culture of like this is just not just any living area. This is a place for us to really get an opportunity to change ourselves for the better, even though we're not going home. We're living here, but we want to build this ability to care about people that live around us and care about ourselves. Like that was like the ultimate to have a
Basically
place where this
creating your own
bodies.
resources because TDC is not, I mean, anybody that has anything to do with Texas prisons knows we're just warehousing people. We're not
Yeah,
rehabbing
it's on our own
anybody.
industry. It's our own industriousness. It's our own
It's making warehouse
yeah.
is what it is. And,
So we pull our bootstraps up. So we had to
you got to make
well
your
what
own resources. You're making your own resources. And so I think that's what I love about it is that you stepped up and you're helping the community inside because you're living there. Like this is where you live.
I
And
would
I just
say
think
I would say yeah. I'd say we're all we got because there would be times
exactly.
where there would get times where it'd be heated where they're like, man, this is just BS. Like, why do we have all this stuff? It's like, dude, if we don't do it, like they're letting
Nobody's gonna.
us, right? They're letting us do, you know, they're giving us this until we make them take it away. But no one is going to make our life or situation better but us. And this is
Well,
how
I
we
think
can do it.
there's a ripple effect of what you did. It was so funny. I was thinking about you the other day because it was an article I read, and it was talking about taking that program and moving it to other prisons. So,
Hmm.
it started where you're at, and then now it's going to ripple out through, it's going to take time or
Yeah.
whatever. But man, you started this thing here, and it's going to ripple through the prison and, help so many other people. So it's just awesome that you got that rolling and it's going to help so many people. But I think the other thing that I wanted to point out is, before my son went to prison, I didn't have any knowledge of prison, didn't think about prison, didn't think about people in prison, kind of had this little stereotypical thing that people in prison are just I don't know, uneducated or,
Yeah.
poor or poverty, whatever. And so that's what I just want to point out is I've learned so much about inmates, families, all of the things, and I just want people to know. I mean, here, I mean, my son, I was a single mom. He was raised well. He was raised in church. He was a believer. He's baptized, got off on the wrong track. You were from a wealthy family. Your parents were one was a police officer, social worker. You're educated. You talk well, like it is not the people in prison are not who people think they are. You
Yeah.
know, they're educated. Some of them are wealthy. Some of them are, some of them are like just, you know, a product of a system that didn't offer them anything, or from the, what if they were raised, where their parents were on drugs or whatever. But I mean, it's a whole different mindset for people on the outside. I think they don't think about what people are like in there, or that that's its own world, and you are having to go in there and create what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the head right there. The lack of awareness of the people, the just regular people that are behind the walls is something that is tragedy in and of itself. And that's where
It
the
is because,
work
like,
that
I go in there and I'm like, I meet you guys, like I meet you, and I meet a couple of the other guys that I talk to, and I'm like, these are people I'd be friends with, like these are people, like I enjoy talking to. They're so I'm just like and people will say like, "Gosh, aren't you afraid to go talk to them? Or aren't you afraid to sit?" No, like you giving them a chance and hear their story and know what happened, because I mean, there are so many people warehoused in prison that what is there, 5, 6,000 per prison, and there's
yeah, that we have
up to a
a
million prisons.
population of 140,000 and like 40 like 20,000 are on parole probation, but so yeah, about the high 120s,
Oh, I thought it was
130,000
way
people in
higher
prison.
than that.
No,
And
it's
I'm like,
yeah, it's a big
there's
number.
so many people in prison. Like they're not all like that. They're not all just, you know.
It's every cross section of society condensed in one can.
It is. It is. It
Yeah.
is. In one can. That's right. All right. So I don't know. We got like I don't know about 15 more minutes. So I want you to talk about driven. What you doing now?
Okay, yeah, so driven. So that's another awesome thing that that happened doing the work that we did is it allowed organizations to come in and actually see not just all the inmates and then who do we pick out of these guys like to give an opportunity to, but now there was a central location outside of the chapel where programming was happening, where real people were doing real work and real change was happening. And that was just the carryover for me is starting help. I'm the co-founder of this thing. It was effective because of the authenticity of it and that the end result for the person going through it, they weren't going to get parole. They were going to get something more meaningful. They were going to get a true gauge of their personality and their perspective on how prison can be an opportunity for great character change. And in and of itself, that's it. Like you go through this thing, and that's that. Yeah, we have parties sometimes where we got food and free world stuff and certificates and pictures and all that stuff's important. But it was a space where all the noise, most of the noise of prison that prevents us from looking at ourselves was lessened. And when we had the opportunity of Scott Graham and Tabitha Graham coming in, they're the founders of Driven Reentry, um, along with the people like those organizations where we don't, the back office people and the board and stuff, but. Um,
So how
doing
did you
so
meet
well.
him? How did you get hooked up with them?
So
How did you get hooked up
man,
with?
okay. So Gateway, this is how it happened. So Gateway was making a prison campus, right? Inside a prison. So what that means is church
Mhm.
comes in, they want to do services and all that. Well, having the recovery housing, those people didn't have to go to the chapel. Uh, it was a showcase on the unit where the warden wanted to show, because it's crazy, prison's crazy, and the wardens don't want the wardens for good reason want to protect the individuals that come in from the chaos, and they take them straight to the chapel. But since we had recovery housing and it was doing so well, they were able to take these people and see what we're doing. And it was so amazing that a maximum security prison could have these people sitting in folding chairs with a rolling board and me giving a talk or running a class for 3 hours. So 50 minutes, 10-minute break, 50 minutes, 10-minute break. So each session, these men, these hardened, worst of the worst, we had G3s in there, worst of the worst, absolute, just think about the worst thing. And we had maybe two or three of them. Um, and
Mhm.
they're there giving their attention, giving their tears, giving their testimonies, and walking through a program. And so when that gateway people came and saw that Scott Graham, what it was that is the head of the prison ministry. And so we opened up immediately, and my vision was a prison community pipeline because I didn't want to just give these guys that were going to go home, like, okay, so I'm better, now what? Like, yeah, there's a transition point,
Now what?
and you have to be a civilized
Yeah.
citizen in society. And there's going to be opportunity if your character's right and you know what you want and you have values, you will be able to get an opportunity to meet people that have the resources to finance your success, and then for you to go and reach back and help other people. Like that's what's going to happen here. And so when I kind of gave a little piece of my mind to Scott, he was like, "Oh wow, this is awesome." And this was a point of expansion. So I walked with him for 3 years. So this was the first meeting that I'm talking to you about. So they come in, they do the radio station, like KCBI from Dallas comes and outfits the radio station, and we're going with the program, we're expanding it. And so Scott starts coming in on Wednesdays and sees the work. And this is before Driven was actually formalized. And he had came to me and said, "Hey, look, we're going to do this thing. It's a transitional living. It's very high caliber. We want people like you that are have administrative ability or just have a gift to lead, and we want to introduce you to people that are leadership in different aspects of industry or just whatever that are in within the church. But it's going to be called Driven Reentry, and we want you to be there." And so I remember I had got a 3-year set off, so I'm coming off of a 3-year set off from parole. I'm thinking I'm making parole.
Mhm.
Well, so, but he tells me this, and I'm like, yeah, let's press in. And so I get a 2-year set off on, so I get a 2-year set off after he gives me this opportunity. So God's testing me and saying, okay, are you really doing this thing to do this thing, or
Gotta
whatever?
stick with it.
Are you
Yeah.
gonna, are you gonna stick with it when it gets hard, when the storm comes? Are you going to stick with it?
I
And
know.
so,
Yeah.
so, so, so the storm came, and then that wasn't it. So I got a 2-year set off, and then I got diagnosed with cancer. And then that's when I really pressed in on the purpose because I was like, okay, if I'm gonna die, I get to do something that will be a legacy that isn't the crime that I did. And so then
So
when I was
you're
going through
thinking
treat,
you're gonna die, and you're like, I'm gonna go out good.
yeah, oh yeah, and then what's crazy is God gave me a finale because I had to go to Estelle, and so the unit the when I helped start recovery housing, it was 42 participants in the beginning, like, and then it ended up being like 200 and something when I left.
Oh
When I
wow.
went to when I went to Estelle for treatment, some directors visited me there, and we started a program. When I left, there's almost 400 people doing some form of living area program. So
Oh, you
it's
did
it's
it
just
at a sale too?
Yeah, we did. There's a major happening in Estelle. I mean, it's
Oh, I didn't know
arguably,
you did it there because you went there
yeah,
for treatment, right? For
treatment.
your
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, arguably, that it's a result of the work that we did with the recovery housing. And so with Scott, when I'm going to treatment, I hadn't talked to him for a year. And so
Wow.
I'm feeling like I reached back out to him. I said, "Hey, Scott, does the offer still stand? I'm going through this thing." He's like, "Dude, where are you at? I'll pick you up wherever. You're still my guy." And I go into Michael, and this thing, people are still doing their thing. And yes, yes. But this is what the amazing part was. If I would have made parole the time that I did, Driven wasn't even, it was only being drawn up. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. And
Oh my
so,
gosh, this is so cool because it's just like I've been doing this whole thing with God ordering my steps. He orders your steps, He orders our steps. And so this is so cool to see that because y'all, He's healed of cancer, right? Like, so He's healed from
yes.
cancer. He's, look at him, the man's
Yeah.
healthy. Like, look at him. And,
Yeah.
anyways, when I first saw him, I didn't know you were sick. Were you even diagnosed when I first met you? Because I'm like,
Um, no,
I don't think you
I
knew
was
yet.
just kind of, I didn't know yet. I didn't know I was sick yet.
Because you sent me an email that you had got diagnosed with leukemia, and I was like, oh my gosh, But I guess you were having symptoms when I met you because you were thin. You just, you didn't look,
Yeah.
didn't look good. I mean,
Yeah.
you looked all right, but you were sick,
Yeah.
and you didn't
Yeah. I
weren't
was
even
sick.
aware. And I'm like, look at him now, and he's all, so that's so cool. Like you get this horrible diagnosis, you think you're going to die. Okay, I'm going to go out with a bang. You get sent to another unit for, health care and treatment, and you end up doing something over there,
Yeah.
double ripple, and you're healed.
Yes. Yeah. And then
Praise
and then
God.
I'm here in Plano. I'm here in Plano, in the
Here in
beautiful
Texas,
sunshine, in the sunshine. And
doing
and
the
so,
program. So, man, that's
yeah.
crazy. I I love how this podcast has gone, and I love that you shared more of your story. And there's just so much of it. But man, God's done amazing stuff with you and the fellas there. And there is another guy in the house with him that I want to do a podcast with. If we can get him on, Mr.
We're
Gino. So
gonna,
hopefully
and
he's okay.
he and when you get him, oh man, you want to talk about story. That boy's story is, man, yes, great,
Oh, I can't
lovely.
wait to hear his story because I've gotten any of his stories. So hopefully he'll be up next. But Um, so if any, I'm going to include links to Driven, and it's in the previous podcast that Matthew did, part one, I guess we'll say part one that you did before. The links
Yeah,
are all in that one too. If anybody knows anybody, needs anybody, because you don't have to have gone to prison to be involved in Driven. You can go there
no,
if you need a, you
yeah,
need a,
if you could stay sober, if you need to stay sober and you are willing to do the work.
and you need a community of great guys to walk you through it. They're basically disciples. They're walking three people through the mud and the muck and helping them come out on the other side.
Yeah,
Well, gosh, I thank you so much again for taking time and doing part two with
oh,
me. And
it's
I'm
awesome.
praying for you and I'm praying for the guys there. I'm just amazed at your story and keep it up.
I will,
There's more to
and next there's more to come, and next time we'll give you updates on the driven activities because that's awesome too.
Absolutely, yeah. I know I would love to come and do a little, but I don't know if that you can even do that, do a little
Come,
tour or whatever. Um,
yes, come,
but yeah, we can look at that in the future. We'll
yes.
see.
Well, Mama
All right.
Bear,
Well,
thank you
thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a great day. I appreciate you.
you. You too. Bye.
Bye.